Good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers and then we'll just look at some of the verses to understand the message from Yog Vashisht. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Tatsavitrvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Astoma Sadgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityorma Mritam Gamya Om Sahna Bhavatu Sahna Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvi Shavahi Om Shanti 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 Om. We read about Saptabhumis in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. He only uses the term Saptabhumi, but the real explanation and definition of those Saptabhumi, like 7 stages of evolvement or improvement in us. Those are the Saptabhumis. And the definitions and the names are given in Yoga Vashisht. So first one we saw Shubhecha, then Vicharna, then Tanumanasi, Satvapati, Asasankti, Padartha Bhavana, and Turiyaga. So 7th one is Turiyaga. So Rishi Vashisht is giving all this knowledge to Shri Ram when Shri Ram was only a teenager still. So Guru is Rishi Vashisht, student is Shri Ram. And then we saw towards the end of last class a question put in by Shri Ram. He said, "O Lord, how is the crossing of the sansar possible for the ignorant one who has not taken to yoga?" So that means a person who has not even stepped on this ladder yet, not even on the first step. What happens to that? And what is the fate of one who has practiced the initial steps of yoga but dies without reaching the goal? And the same question was put in by Arjuna also to Shri Krishna. The similar question. These are very natural questions. They come to our mind also. That I'm practicing. I have reached to a certain stage. What will happen if I have not reached the ultimate goal of my life? So first, Rishi Vashisht describes the fate of the ignorant one, because he wanted to know what happens to the ignorant who has not even started on this journey. Rishi Vashisht says, Mudasya arud doshasya tavat samsriti atata yavat janmantra shataina udita prathma api bhu. He says to the ignorant one, whose sins are deep-rooted, the life of transmigration is spread as long as even the first step has not risen in 100 other births. So a spiritually ignorant person is not necessarily illiterate. It's not a certain class or a caste or a gender or nationality, age, etc. No. The criteria given by Rishi Vashisht is that the thought of spirituality has not even arisen in that person. Could be very successful in this material world, but these questions have not arisen yet. That's why he calls it a mudasya, deluded one. So deluded one is a person who takes the world to be real. That is a mood. That is the ignorance. When we think that this is real. And a person who thinks, I'm just the body. And the goal of life is to eat, drink, and be merry. According to these Vedic rishis, that is ignorance. So it will take a long time, countless lifetimes. Because if the pattern of the behavior does not change, we have heard that if we don't change the way we do things, we will stay where we are, or maybe we will fall down. So according to the scriptures, according to the Vedic rishis, a person has the possibility of 8,400,000 types of births. So according to our own desires, according to our own actions, we might be taking birth into one of those species. That means countless species. We can go anywhere to enjoy, or it could be to suffer. And that's also based upon our own karmas. Unless the individual has become a seeker, that means a person has started on the journey of spirituality. Person cannot come out of the cycle of transmigration. There's no other way out. So the ignorant people may even attend spiritual discourses, but they are not listening. The message is not really going into their intellect, into their minds. Their minds get distracted very easily. In fact, they might fall asleep. Or they may attend one or two times, but they say it's not for me. Those are the mood. So moodasya arud doshasya. See, arud doshasya means those dosh, those flaws, those deep-rooted negative personality, they are sitting on it. Arud doshasya. So this is the fate of the ignorant one. What is the fate of those who have started the journey but did not reach the goal? Because that was the second question Shri Ram asked. And Rishi Vashisht is saying, however, when dispassion has arisen in a person, so the first thing is dispassion. Even in Arjuna, the very first chapter in Bhagavad Gita, that was about dispassion, Vishad Yoga. So over here, Rishi Vashisht is saying the same thing. However, when dispassion has arisen in a person, there is certainly the rise of the other steps of knowledge. Then the sansar vanishes. And this is the import of the scriptures. So vairagye abhyu udit jantoho avasham bhumika udya tata nashyati sansara iti shastra artha sangraha. So clearly we are getting a message over here. If we want to reach to the goal, vairagya has to be there. We don't have to leave our homes, but internally we got to understand what is the reality of this life. Why did I take birth? So the first step on the spiritual path is detachment from the world, which may arise due to various reasons actually. Those who believe in the theory of karma say that detachment arises as a result of meritorious acts done in the past life. Like a Shubh Karam in the past, right now a person is not attached to this worldly life, living in the world but not attached to it. The Bhagat, the devotees, believe that the Lord's grace brings a person on the spiritual path. It is a blessing of the Guru or God that I'm thinking about, that there is something more to this life than to just earn and preserve and eat, raise children, and ultimately die. The inquiry mind is convinced that detachment follows from observation and analysis of life. Jnani thinks that. So there's so many different ways we can come to this conclusion that vairagya is needed. Some people even think that Guru is responsible for bringing them on the spiritual path. Some people think that the satsang can bring some detachment in their life. Or parents, or relatives, friends, upbringing. Or some people even come to this detachment if some kind of a blow happened in life. But ultimately, we got to look at that is this detachment real? Or is this detachment just temporary? Do we really feel detached when we're in the presence of our Guru? Or do we feel detached otherwise also? That's why we read the scriptures. The primary scriptures, they tell us the real way to detach from this worldly life. They give us knowledge, the Gyan. To reach far, because goal is far. To reach far, we have to begin from the near. So that means where we are, we got to take first step. So we begin attaining dispassion for the entire world by cultivating relative detachment from the near and the dear, from the luxuries of the life, style of our living. After this happens, discrimination arises, and then it follows a deeper dispassion. That's why Rishi Patanjali talked about lower vairagya, lower detachment than higher detachment. We cannot wish for the higher detachment if we have not even stepped on the lower detachment. From dispassion or the vairagya, a person enters into the deep contemplation and finally realizes the non-existence of the world and attains self-absorption, which we learn in those 7 steps. But the difficulty lies in bringing about the initial arising of detachment. That's where it really starts. Although initially it is difficult to get out of the bed, but when we do so, we are propelled into actions, inside also, outside also. So the first step needs to be taken. And slowly we'll see that our initial inertia which we felt totally vanishes. Even when we are sleeping, our thoughts are always about this higher purpose. And when we know the self, the sansar, the cycle of transmigration is totally destroyed. In order to answer Ram's question, Rishi Vashisht continued. He said, in case of the embodied one, whose life has passed through the steps of yoga, sins of former incarnations get destroyed in accordance with the steps of yoga reached by that person. So that means that you keep on climbing up and up and up. Once you have taken the first step, you are careful. There is no fall on the spiritual path because we are very careful. We have a glimpse of that goal. It's almost like when we walk down a winding mountain, we want to ultimately climb towards those higher altitudes. We are careful. We don't want to slip down. Whatever it takes, we take it with us, proper shoes or a stick. When Arjuna also asked Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter, Lord Krishna said there's no bad fate or fall for one who has started on the path of good. He is assuring him. He says, in fact, even a little of this dharma, that means a good conduct, helps the person to overcome great fear. These are the words of Shri Krishna. So we have to just wholeheartedly start taking few steps and we'll feel the pull of God's blessings towards him. He says, my devotee does not fall. As a person flies higher, there is a detachment from the lower. And this is what happens to this person. Sometimes even in this lifetime, a person has not reached. We have stories to encourage us in our scriptures. We read about the story of Jad Bharat in Bhagavad Purana. It's a well-known story about Jad Bharat. He was meditating. He was a rishi. He saw a newborn deer that was left helpless by its mother. Out of compassion, he saved the little one and looked after it. Then he became so attached to that deer and he neglected his own practice, spent all his time morning till night taking care of the deer. If a deer would disappear in the jungle, he'll run after it. And in that story, because he was so attached, he was born as a deer in next life. But due to his extreme attachment to the deer, and because of his practices in the past, he was born as a deer, but he was born near an ashram. So all the old practices which he did, they did not go waste. And then after the life of a deer, he was born as a saint again. And he was on the path. Then he was totally detached from the world. He understood that this attachment, even while taking care of somebody, mentally we should not be attached. He got mentally attached. So our scriptures don't say that don't take care of other beings. Have compassion, but keep the mind attached to God and God only. How does a seeker exhaust the merits from past lives? Are they helpful on the spiritual journey? Rishi Vashisht says, when even merits come to an end, by passing through a holy world, that is the heavens, the yogi is born in the house of pure and prosperous. So that means the good karmas were done, but those good karmas were done keeping the fruit in the mind. Sakam karam. So that's why that personality went to heaven. But after extinguishing those good karmas, came back. So this is almost like a seeker who has attained the first three states. First three states out of those seven. Because a lot of good karmas has been done. Because of the good tendencies, thoughts, conduct. But person died without reaching the higher yogic states. And the merits resulted in attainment of heavens. And after enjoying heavenly pleasures for a long period, a person is reborn in an atmosphere conducive to spiritual practices. Lord Krishna used the word yogsadhanashramusa for these kind of seekers. The one fallen from yoga. That means a person was on the path towards the highest, but due to the limit of this bodily life, fell down, yoga bhrashta. You will see that, or you have seen it in chapter 6, verse number 41. The yoga bhrash, the one fallen from yoga, a seeker who has not yet attained the highest state, is born in a house of the pure and prosperous. But that person may not be always spiritually inclined. Sometimes this luxury of the life, it immerses our mind into this worldly life. And we are not seeing the truth the way it is. In fact, we start identifying ourselves, these prosperous families we are born in. But there are people who have these sanskars, even though they are born in rich and the prosperous families, no pride about their wealth. They live a life of values. They earn money by righteous means and are religiously and spiritually inclined. And there are examples of these people also. The seeker is born into such a family, and within a short period, that person picks up the practices left off in the previous birth. Or is born directly in the lineage of wise yogis. That is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, verse number 42. And alternatively, a seeker may be born in a family of realized souls, advanced seekers, or maybe living among seekers directly from childhood. So journey is not just one lifetime, several lives. And Lord Krishna says such a birth is indeed rare and fortunate, as the seeker starts the spiritual practices very early under proper guidance. But what happens to a seeker who is reborn in a conducive atmosphere? What happens there? Then he rises towards the three subsequent steps. O Ram, these first three steps together are considered the waking state, he says. The first three steps. In the first step, if you remember Shubhicha, that means the pure thoughts, pure desires, sattvic desires. Vicharana is the second step, where you started reflecting upon them. And third one was Tanumanasi, where the subtlety of the mind, the thoughts, has arisen. Those were the first three steps. By the force of the practice done in the previous births, a seeker comes back to it when he gets a conducive atmosphere. And propelled by the intensity and sincerity of the practice, those two things we got to remember. Intensity, because our practice can be very lukewarm. Anything worldly comes in our life, we just let go of our practice. That's a lukewarm practice. So we have to create the intensity of our practice. No matter what happens, I am not going to give up my practice. Often we let go of the sacred very easily when the secular comes. Secular means the worldly responsibilities. We pay more attention to the worldly responsibilities than the sacred responsibilities. Intensity is no matter what happens, my sacred should not go away. I can let go of the secular. That's why Lord Krishna says, my bhagat, my devotee, doesn't want to become popular in this world. Because in order to become popular, you got to just meet people, greet people, do all kinds of secular things. So we got to remember, we got to make the intensity higher and higher for our practice if you want to reach all the way up there. Again, going back to Rishi Patanjali's words, he said, Mridu, that is a weak practice. Madhyam, that is a medium practice. Adhimatra, that is the intense practice. What kind of a practice is ours? We got to look into it. Because propelled by the intensity and the sincerity of the practice, the seeker does not have to practice the earlier stages. Because earlier stages, the effect of those stages, first three, they're already there, embedded. And the seeker progresses towards the subsequent stages. Fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Sometimes we wonder, how come we don't reach to that samadhi state, turega state? This is not something we wish for. This is something we have to practice for. And practice has to be done by us. The final state actually comes automatically. Automatically to a person who has already reached to the sixth state. Up to the sixth, we have to make the effort. See, just like for the pratyahar, we have to make the effort. For the yam and the niyams also, we have to make the effort. Not to tell a lie, not to hurt anybody. We have to make an effort. To be able to sit still in one position, we have to make an effort. So for dharana also, there is an effort. Dharana is the concentration. For dhyan also, initially there's an effort, but then it becomes effortless because you start enjoying it. But samadhi, no effort. You are just propelled to that with the grace of the God and the Guru. And with the heat of your own sincerity and the practice. The Hindu scriptures divide the time period of one creation cycle like a kalpa, it's called kalpa, into 4 yugs. Spiritually speaking, the Kali Yuga, the dark age, is comparable to when an individual is fast asleep. Kali Shayana Bhavati. Deep sleep. That's why most of the people are sleeping deeply towards this ultimate goal. Lot of ignorance. Doing the religious activities also for the sake of sometimes name and fame, or sometimes to earn some future fruits. Sakam Bhakti. That is a Kali Yuga. Mental Kali Yuga. That doesn't mean our mind has to be in this state when we are born in Kali Yuga. There's always some light in the dark nights also. When the sleeper turns over in bed, become a little aware, that is a Dwapar Yuga. When the sleeper sits up, that is a Treta Yuga. When the seeker's Sat Yuga, the age of truth, is when he or she is actually starts walking the spiritual path. So are we living a Satyogi life or not? That's up to us. We cannot just wash our hands and say we were born in the dark ages and there's no hope for us. No. Individually, we can. If we have all this clearly in our mind. When we listen to the scriptures, it's called Shravan. That's very important. When we reflect upon what we heard, is called Manan. And when we contemplate, and when we really walk on that path, Nidhi Dhyasan. So Shravan, Manan, Nidhi Dhyasan. So these are the steps which help us attain those higher levels. A person who has given up all evil tendencies is living a value-based life, has developed dispassion and discrimination, and is performing good actions, is called a noble person. And that's what the RA really means. Arya, a noble person. Nobility starts
मुक्ता बाथरूम आ रही थी। हाँ, उठा लिया था उसने, मैं ऊपर भी गई थी वो।
You're muted, Hershey.
Thank you. Thank you. So nobility starts with the first step. And first step was what? Listening and hearing the words of the scriptures and the Guru. Blossoms with the second step. When we reflect upon it, and it really gives the fruits, or you can call it, fructifies with the third step. Because unless we walk on the path, we won't have the fruits. We can definitely listen to all kinds of videos, read all the scriptures. Sure, some information is going, but the real fruit of that we'll enjoy when we start practicing it. Nididhyasan. And Vashisht ji cautions us about the main obstacles to progress. He says there is a she elephant which is called desire. Astihi yayant mad unmataha karne. Karne means a she elephant. Icha samahavya. So there's a she elephant called desire who's extremely intoxicated. Mad unmata. Who is extremely intoxicated with what? With lust. If she is not killed instantly, she will certainly cause endless calamities. So obstacles really start with the desires. It's not somebody else's desires, our own desires. People sometimes wonder why, even after practicing meditation for years, they are not progressing. Others are interested to find out how to get peace of mind. I go to the temple also. I pray also every day, but there's no peace. So Vashisht ji is answering here that it is desire which is the main obstacle on our path, which agitates the mind. Since it's our desire, we have to know where it resides and how to get rid of it. So Vashisht ji is comparing the desire with an elephant roaming in the jungle of the body, creating a sorrow, delusion, and passion. And what are we feeding this elephant? Desire. Through our vasanas. Vasanas are the worldly memories. Worldly memories are completely destroying the greedy. When these desires become strong, we become stubborn. We even become unreasonable, obsessed, and uncontrollable. We feel we have to have the object of desire, no matter what happens. Such obsessions do not allow us to listen to our intellects, nor to the others' words. Somebody is giving us advice and we don't want to listen to it. We do what we want and in the process destroy ourselves and others. So desires not only destroy the good in us, But eventually they breed anger, jealousy, hatred, cruelty, anxiety, frustration, and you can add a lot more to this list. We justify our desires and condone our desire-prompted actions. When the same elephant is sober and under control, that elephant is very gentle. Elephant is a very kind animal, serves humankind, worshipped outside, even in the Hindu temples. We get the blessing also, but the gentleness has to be there. So that means our desires, we have to change them to the Satvikta. Gita says, I am the might in the mighty who are free of desire and attachment. In the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 11. You can check it out. How can we conquer this wild elephant? Through the practice, through detachment. Again and again in every chapter, that's what we learn. Every scripture we learn that. Every bhajan we sing, we say that. But ultimately we have to do that. Worldly desires are opposed to spiritual progress. Sometimes we think that no, we can have both. No. We got to pay attention to one, our 100% attention to one. Only then the progress will be there. The progress which we are talking about. Not just a lukewarm progress, not just a progress will keep us in the middle, the progress which will take us towards the ultimate goal. Because that's where Rishi Vashisht wants us to go, to that goal of life. So let's end the class here today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.
Harshji?